Shadows of Betrayal Part 1. The room is dim, lit only by a sliver of moonlight through half-drawn curtains. Arya sits alone on the bed, tears streaming down her face. In her arms, she clutches a worn photograph of her former husband, Farhan, gazing down at his familiar face. Her sobs are quiet but intense, filled with heartbreak and the weight of the unknown future for herself and her 7-month-old son, Fahim. Suddenly, her phone buzzes. The noise shatters the silence, making her jump. She reaches for it, squinting at the screen. The name, Farhan, still saved under the familiar nickname she hadn't had the heart to change.
Farhan.
There's a long pause, just Arya's uneven breathing. Finally, she answers.
Arya, I never wanted to leave you, or Fahim. This wasn't my choice. It's like something dark forced me away. You don't know what's going on, but I wanted to live with you till my last breath.
Farhan, what are you saying? Why are you calling me? You divorced me, moved on. What's going on?
I know you haven't accepted it, Arya. I can feel it, and even now, I know you're clutching my picture. There's something you need to know. I didn't leave by choice. Some truths I couldn't say, others you'll have to find on your own. But I don't have much time.
His voice falters, filled with fear.
If tomorrow, in the cold light of morning, you hear that I'm gone, promise me you won't come. Don't look at me, Arya. Let me go without you seeing me like that.
The line goes quiet, his breathing faint. Arya holds the phone, waiting for something, anything. But the silence stretches on. A full half-hour passes before she, numbly, ends the call. The early light of morning filters in through the windows. Arya sits in a trance on the sofa, still trying to comprehend Farhan's words. A knock at the door rouses her. She opens it to find Police Officer Kareem, with a solemn expression.
Ms. Arya, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Farhan was found this morning. He's gone.
Arya takes a step back, her hand trembling.
Gone? But how?
We suspect he ingested poison. The autopsy will tell us more. It doesn't seem like an accident.
Arya's knees buckle slightly as she absorbs the news. She remembers Farhan's final words, the haunting tone in his voice. She swallows, struggling to hold back tears. Her family gathers, waiting for Arya to explain where she's been all morning. Her father, brother, and sisters-in-law sit with stony expressions, watching her as she speaks.
I just wanted to say goodbye to him, that's all. I needed closure.
Her father's face darkens, a hint of anger in his eyes.
Why? You were divorced. You have no right to see him, not after everything.
Arya's sister-in-law, with a sneer, folds her arms.
Did you think of your son, Arya? You left him here to chase a ghost.
Silence falls over the room as Arya's brother joins in, his tone accusing.
And on top of that, there's the jewelry, Arya. If you needed money, you could have asked. Why did you have to sell my wife's things?
Arya looks at brother in shock, confusion etched on her face.
What are you talking about? I would never steal anything. This is absurd.
The shopkeeper has the receipt with your name on it. You signed it, Arya. I trusted you.
Arya's face crumples, shocked and hurt. Her family turns their backs, each leaving the room without looking at her. Arya stands alone, crushed, feeling the weight of betrayal as she tries to comprehend what just happened. A week later, Arya sits across from Mr. Rahman, a sharp-eyed investigator she had been introduced to through a mutual friend. They sit at a small, dimly lit table. Arya's hands tremble as she speaks, recounting the events of the past week.
Foreign death, the sudden divorce. Nothing makes sense. And now, my family is accusing me of things I didn't do. Someone's behind all this. I just need to know who.
Mr. Rahman watches her carefully, his eyes narrowing as she speaks.
You still care for him, even after everything?
He was my husband, the father of my child. I need to know the truth.
Mr. Rahman takes a sip of his drink, considering her words.
I'll look into it, but on one condition. No one else knows about this. Not your family, not your friends, no one.
I understand. I'll tell no one.
Good. Meet me here, same time, next Saturday. I'll bring what I find.
Mr. Rahman rises, leaving Arya alone in the dim restaurant. Mr. Rahman rises, leaving Arya alone in the dim restaurant.
Mr. Rahman, did you find something?
You didn't tell me everything, Arya. Like the fact you had a boyfriend before Farhan. And that you met him several times even after you were married.
Arya's face drains of color.
Your boyfriend was found dead tonight, Arya. He kept a diary, filled with accusations against you. Arya betrayed me. Arya deceived me. He even mentioned Farhan, the things he suspected you two had hidden.
No, this is impossible.
You didn't listen, did you? And now, bodies are piling up. This isn't over, Arya.
The line goes dead. Arya sits alone in her darkened room, paralyzed by fear. Heart pounding, Arya rushes to find her father, sensing an impending threat. She searches his room but finds it empty.
Mom, where's Dad?
Her mother, alarmed, joins the search. Family members scour the house, but there's no sign of him. Finally, Arya opens the door to the garden. Her breath catches as she spots her father lying on the cold ground outside. Arya rushes to her father's side, touching his face. His skin is cold, his eyes closed forever. Arya's face fills with horror as the enormity of her loss and betrayal closes in on her. Shadows of Betrayal. Next part coming soon. Shadows of Betrayal Part 2. It's dark, the quiet air broken only by distant city sounds. Arya's father, Imar Sahil, lies motionless on the ground just inside the family's front gate. Arya runs toward him, her heart racing. She reaches out, touching his cold skin. Her breath catches in her throat.
Dad?
Arya's brother, Rian, approaches and kneels next to her, his hand shaking as he checks their father's pulse. Rian's face drains of color. Rian, whispering, almost to himself. No, there's no pulse. Their mother, Samina, rushes outside, panic-stricken.
What's wrong with him? Why is he so cold? Pick him up. We need to get him to the hospital. Why are you both just sitting there?
Rian's voice trembles as he speaks, fighting back tears.
Mom, he's gone. Dad's not breathing. This isn't an accident.
Samina, in disbelief, slaps Rian across the face, angered and desperate.
What are you talking about? Are you a doctor now? How dare you speak such nonsense?
Before anyone can react, Samina's face pales, and she collapses in shock. Arya and Rian quickly help her back inside, laying her on a couch where Arya's sister's-in-law, Lara, watches anxiously. Arya and Rian return to the front gate, standing over their father's body in silence. Rian dials the police, urgency in his tone.
Yes, it's an emergency. My father, he's dead. Please come quickly. They wait, silent and shaken. Arya stifles her sobs as she kneels beside her father's body.
The flashing lights of a police car approach. Officer Rahman and a few detectives arrive, assessing the scene. Officer Rahman signals the team to search the area while carefully examining the body.
Was your father known to come outside this late? Any reason why he'd be out here?
No, we were asleep. We only woke up when Arya started shouting. She couldn't find Dad anywhere inside, so we looked outside and found him here.
Officer Rahman glances down, noticing a black envelope partially hidden beneath the body. He pulls it out carefully, turning it over in his hands.
A black envelope.
He raises an eyebrow and addresses Rian.
Do you have any suspects? Anyone with a reason to harm your father?
Rian's eyes narrow, and he glances sharply at Arya.
Yes, actually, I do. I believe my sister, Arya, could be involved.
Arya's eyes widen in shock, her face turning pale.
How could you say that, Rian? Why would I do such a thing?
Before anyone can respond, footsteps approach from the dark. A calm but authoritative voice cuts through the tense silence. Unknown voice. Actually, officer, I think Rian here might have more answers than his sister. Everyone turns to see a man in a dark coat approaching. He flashes a badge. It's Sazid Evans, a high-ranking detective from the Special Investigations Branch.
Detective Evans? I didn't expect to see you here tonight.
Trust me, I didn't expect it either, Officer Rahman. But I had reason to believe Arya's father was in danger tonight. That's why I called her.
Sazid Evans glances down at Mr. Sahil's body, noting the black envelope Officer Rahman still holds.
What's in the envelope?
Officer Rahman hands the envelope over. Sazid opens it, pulling out a folded letter. He reads aloud, his tone grim.
Pushed to the limit by those around me. Tonight, I was to perform my final sin, to end what could not be forgiven. But I was called before I could fulfill it. May my sins be judged. Signed. S.
Sazid folds the letter, his face darkening.
This letter is from someone named S. Does that mean anything to any of you?
Could it be Shadow? That's what they call him in the underworld. This sounds like his work. Yes, it's Shadow, all right. And if he's left his mark here, there's more to uncover. Officer, get the body to the morgue. This wasn't an accident, it's a deliberate, calculated move. And it's far from over.
As the officers work, Arya turns to Sazid, her face pale, eyes hollow.
Who is this Shadow? Why would he do this? My father he wasn't involved in anything like this.
Really, Arya? Are you so sure? Lately, it seems like everyone around you dies in mysterious ways. First, your ex-husband, then your ex-boyfriend, and now Dad. Makes me wonder, Arya.
Stop. I don't know why this is happening. And I had nothing to do with any of it.
Sazid steps between them, silencing Rian with a sharp look.
Enough. Accusing each other won't help anyone right now. Arya, I'll look into it. And Rian, let's not jump to conclusions.
Sazid sighs, turning to face Arya. His expression softens.
Listen, Arya, I'll find out who did this. But it's dangerous. If you know anything at all, I need you to tell me.
I keep thinking of Leo. He called me that night before he died. He told me things I didn't understand. He kept saying he didn't want the divorce, that someone else was pulling the strings. Now my father, and even my ex.
Her voice trails off as she fights back tears.
If there's one thing I've learned in my line of work, it's that the people who pull the strings rarely get their own hands dirty. Shadow isn't working alone. There's someone else, someone closer to home. Trust me.
Sazid, along with Officer Rahman, paces the station's main floor. He pulls out a file labeled Shadow and thumbs through it, his face deepening with concern.
So, this Shadow character, if he's after Arya's family, there has to be a reason. But why?
Shadow doesn't kill at random. Whoever hired him wanted Arya's father out of the way. And if Arya's right about Farhan, she may be the next target.
Officer Rahman's eyes widen as he realizes the gravity of the situation. Back home, Arya sits alone in her room, her son, Fahim, sleeping peacefully in his crib. Her mind races, haunted by Farhan's last call and her father's death. Her phone buzzes. She sees Sazid's name and answers, her voice barely a whisper.
Arya, stay inside tonight. Lock all the doors. I'm coming by first thing in the morning.
Sazid, I need to know, do you think it's connected? Farhan, my ex, my father.
Yes. And I think someone is manipulating everything to frame you. Be careful, Arya.
The call ends, and Arya sits in silence, looking at the only photo she has of Farhan. A faint knock on the door startles her. She approaches slowly, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Shadows of Betrayal. Next part coming soon. Shadows of Betrayal Part 3. It's a tense night. Under the dim glow of the street lamp, Arya stands frozen, shocked by the accusations. Her brother, Rian, stands a few steps away, visibly shaken by Detective Sazid Evans' revelations. Sazid, firmly staring at Liam.
Your father was involved in some dark dealings, Rian. He arranged for the murder of his close friend's son, Eric, Arya's former boyfriend. But he never got the chance to explain his reasons.
Rian's face contorts with shock, his legs tremble, and he stumbles back.
Eric, our father?
Arya stares at Sazid, her mind reeling.
I don't understand. Why would anyone want to kill my father? And Eric's death? Are you saying my father was behind it? None of this makes any sense.
There's someone known as Shadow, Arya, a notorious killer, escaped from prison 2 years ago. He's known for his meticulous murders, leaving black envelopes as warnings, detailing each target's sins. Your father's dealings attracted his attention.
Arya looks down, her mind spinning with disbelief.
My father, involved in illegal business? And why did he want him dead too?
Sometimes, we have to accept painful truths. Your father's business was tied to crime and power. He started by killing someone and planned to end the same way, but he couldn't. As for Eric's death, that remains one of the mysteries I'm still piecing together.
Rian's face tightens, a strange mixture of regret and defiance.
And what does that mean for me?
That you were willing to go to any lengths to take what wasn't yours. Property, money, control. And you were about to make sure Arya was left with nothing.
You think you know everything, don't you?
Suddenly, a loud voice cuts through the tension. Laura, Rian's wife, steps outside, her face twisted with fury.
Take us to the station? What for?
Sazid turns, addressing her coldly.
You'll find out soon enough. By noon, the truth better be out, no hiding. You have until then to admit to everything.
Laura opens her mouth to respond, but two constables step forward, moving her and Ryan towards the car. Rian clenches his fists, but stays silent. As they drive off, Arya watches, speechless and lost. Later that afternoon, Sazid returns to Arya's house. Arya's mother, Samina, sits with hollow eyes, trying to process everything. Arya stands beside her, still reeling from the morning's revelations.
Your brother and his wife have confessed, Mrs. Samina. They admitted to framing Arya, stealing the jewelry, spreading rumors. Their ultimate goal was to keep Arya out of her inheritance.
Samina, overwhelmed, holds back tears.
They tried to convince your husband to disown Arya. But when he wouldn't, Rian decided to end things another way. He convinced his father to meet outside late last night, hoping Shadow's team would handle it for him.
They planned to kill their own father for money?
Yes. They hired the same group of killers your father once hired to eliminate Eric. It was a group of 3 contract killers, completely anonymous, dangerous, and hidden.
My son, my husband, I can't believe it.
One more thing. Years ago, Arya, you lost an uncle. He vanished, only for his body to be found a week later. He was murdered because he'd seen something he shouldn't have. He'd seen your father with another woman.
Arya's face crumbles, the weight of revelation after revelation overwhelming her.
So my father was never innocent. He built everything on lies and violence.
Sazid places a hand on her shoulder.
I'm sorry, Arya. But there's one more thing you need to know.
Arya looks up, waiting, her gaze hollow. Your father's pharmacy business was a cover. It was trafficking illegal medicines. The poison that killed your husband, Farhan, was traced back to that pharmacy.
What? Are you saying my father poisoned Farhan?
We don't know for sure. But we found traces of the poison that killed him there.
But Farhan's death, it was ruled an accident. My family said it was.
They paid to have the case closed, Arya. Your ex-boyfriend, Eric, was involved too, protecting your father's business. And the poison Farhan drank that night? It wasn't meant for him.
The words sink in slowly as Arya processes the depth of her family's betrayal. As dusk settles, Arya stands alone outside, looking over the city lights. Sazid approaches, a steady presence beside her.
I know it's a lot, Arya. But there's a light at the end of this.
My family, everything I thought I knew, was a lie. I loved them, and all they did was use me.
Sazid stands silently as she wipes a tear away, her face set with a new resolve.
I'll make sure Shadow is taken down. You and your son will be safe. I promise.
It's not just about safety. I need answers, and I need to find peace.
Sazid nods, his gaze unwavering.
Then let's find it together.
The two stand in silence as the city lights flicker in the distance, a sense of closure and new beginnings just on the horizon. Shadows of Betrayal. Next part coming soon. Shadows of Betrayal final part. Detective Sazid Evans sits across from Arya and her mother, Samina. The room is tense and silent as they process Sazid's shocking revelations.
Arya, it's true. Legally, you and Farhan were never actually divorced. Every document you signed, it was all forged.
Arya looks stunned, rising to her feet, barely able to comprehend.
How is that even possible? We signed the papers. Everyone was there.
If the entire process was staged from the beginning, Arya, it was all a setup right down to the witnesses.
Her mother speaks up, her voice quivering.
This can't be. Why would Farhan go through so much trouble just to fake a divorce?
Farhan orchestrated it all for reasons I'm still piecing together. But I know he was under immense pressure.
Please, tell me everything. I can't bear any more half-truths.
Farhan's boss, Rabia Chowdhury, was involved. She manipulated him, Arya. And from what I gather, this divorce, it was Farhan's way of protecting you and Fahim. He was trapped, forced into a web of deceit, and his only option was to stage this entire drama.
Arya tries to process everything, her head spinning,
So, Farhan never actually wanted to leave her?
Far from it. He was desperate to find a way out. But let's start from the beginning. Arya, tell me about Eric, your former boyfriend. What really happened?
Arya winces at the mention of Eric's name.
Eric, he betrayed me. He was seeing another woman while we were together, and he even married her in secret. By the time I found out, she was already pregnant. It broke me, Detective. My father's friendship with Eric's family also fell apart because of it.
I've heard similar stories from your family, but I needed to hear it from you, Arya.
Sazid and Arya enter her brother Rian's room, conducting a thorough search. They find nothing of interest. Sazid moves next to Arya's father's room, methodically checking drawers, shelves, and closets. He finds a black envelope hidden inside the pillow cover.
Looks like your father was hiding something.
Sazid opens the envelope and reads the letter silently. Arya watches, her heart racing.
It's from Shadow. He'd been watching your father for a while. Here's what he wrote. To send people above for judgment is something I enjoy. Your sins are being tallied. If you disappear or die, it will be due to your own misdeeds.
Signed, Shadow. Arya's face pales as she processes the note.
So, Shadow had targeted my father from the beginning.
Yes. He was a marked man, Arya. Shadow doesn't make idle threats.
After nearly a month of intense investigation, Sazid gathers Arya and her mother for a final meeting.
I've uncovered it all. Arya, your father started his criminal empire by murdering your uncle. He feared exposure after your uncle discovered his dark secrets. When your uncle confronted him, he chose silence permanently.
Samina covers her face, horrified.
So Eric, did my father have him killed too?
Yes. Eric was blackmailing your father, threatening to reveal his illegal pharmaceutical operations. He forced your father to pay for his silence. But eventually, your father saw him as a liability and took care of him, the same way he took care of everyone else who got in his way.
Arya is visibly shaken, fighting to keep her composure.
I don't want to hear another word about him.
And what about Farhan? I need to know what happened to him.
Farhan's boss, Rabia Chowdhury, was a powerful and manipulative woman. She wanted Farhan for herself, despite knowing he was married and about to become a father. She offered him marriage and more. When he refused, she resorted to threats.
He would never leave us for her.
He didn't. Rabia held him captive emotionally and blackmailed him using intimate photos she'd staged after drugging him. He couldn't escape her hold, and eventually, he planned the divorce as a way to protect you. But Rabia found out.
Arya clutches her chest, horrified.
On the 17th of last month, she had poison added to Farhan's drink through the housemaid. Within hours, the poison began its work. The very last call Farhan made was to you.
Arya's eyes fill with tears as the weight of Sazid words sinks in.
And Eric, he was the one who brought the poison, wasn't he?
Correct. Rabea manipulated Eric, offering him wealth and power. Together, they silenced Farhan and closed the case with bribes, ensuring nothing would ever point back to them.
The room falls into a deep, somber silence as Arya and Samina struggle to process the revelations. Sazid sits alone, enjoying a glass of lassi when his phone rings. He picks it up, noticing the unfamiliar number.
Yes? Who is this?
It's me, Detective. Recognize my voice?
Sazid's face hardens, immediately recognizing his nemesis.
Shadow. I knew you'd be around.
Amusing, isn't it? We keep crossing paths. But you'll never catch me. You're getting older, Detective. Sooner or later, you'll have to retire.
Your time is running out, Shadow. You're on the edge, and you know it. Next time, you won't get away.
Shadow chuckles on the other end, his voice filled with chilling confidence.
That's what you think, Detective. But here's the truth. I decide who gets caught. I write my story, and you're just one of the players in it. Remember, I'm everywhere and nowhere. You'll never see me coming.
Sazid clenches his jaw, keeping his voice steady. Maybe, Shadow. But someday, your story will end, and I'll be there to close the book.
The call cuts off, leaving Sazid in silence. He takes a deep breath, looking out the restaurant window as he contemplates the long chase ahead. Shadows of Betrayal. The end.